Hello and good morning. I'm Tanya Francis and you're watching Morning Asia. I hope the day has started well. Get comfy, grab a cup of tea as we have got a lot to talk about over the next hour. The top headlines in what appears to be another U-turn. US President Donald Trump says Washington is in no hurry to resume negotiations with Iran. More on the way from the Asia One newsroom on that story. Coming up in the papers, political donations, budget nerves and a major immigration crackdown. We'll also have the latest on a devastating hospital fire in Pakistan, deadly landslides in Asia and a potential breakthrough in India-China border talks. That's all coming up in our paper review. First up, let's check the news that global editors have chosen to put on the front pages of the newspapers today. We begin in the UK with The Guardian. It's leading with a lovely smiling picture of Dolly Parton. There we go, as tributes continue to come in. But the main story on the front page of the e-paper reports that their Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, has dropped his support for capping political donations. Just a few weeks ago, he had emailed a campaigner saying he'd backed a £500,000 limit, but after lobbying from Labour's trade union backers, that support's now gone. The Prime Minister has essentially decided not to back amendments to the elections bill, which would cap the amount a person or an organisation can give in a single donation. And while we're talking about Andy Burnham, his name is on another front page too, but this time for a very different reason. The FT, the Financial Times, reports that the British Prime Minister, is trying to calm nerves ahead of the budget being released, with the headline, Burnham battles budget jitters with pledge to take pressure off business. He's reportedly acknowledged that the operating environment is tough for big and small businesses. He's not yet confirmed if business taxes will rise in the new budget. His recent remarks are he's trying to make life easier for people, take the pressure off, and meaningfully deal with the cost of living crisis. What does that actually look like in terms of finances? We won't know until the budget is delivered in the autumn on the 28th of October. Now, we go to a story that made top story headlines throughout the day yesterday, a real tragedy in Pakistan, as it's being reported in Dawn News. 14 infants, babies, killed in a fire at the gynecological ward of a hospital in Islamabad. The paper is saying that the initial reports say that a spark from an AC unit spread through oxygen points, spreading the fire. The paper saying that families say that the rescue teams arrived too late and that the doors were locked. And as a result, the country's Prime Minister, Shehbaz Sharif, has removed the country's health secretary and ordered an inquiry. The footage described shows rescue workers on ladders trying to get into the building, breaking windows, and grieving mothers outside. So a very sad story indeed. The Health Minister, Mustafa Kamal, has vowed accountability. It's a really devastating story that raises questions about hospital safety and also emergency response, which is being looked at in an investigation at the moment. Let's turn our attention to Asia now, where the China Daily leads with an urgent response to a deadly mudslide that's hit a Chinese town. President Xi Jinping has ordered an all-out rescue and relief mission, which hit the border port that connects China and Nepal. The death toll at the time that the paper was released was 3 and over 265 missing. With that figure very much having changed since the paper was released. You can see from the front page aerial footage there of the part of China that was hit, covered in thick mud and debris, alongside pictures of the emergency rescue teams and military personnel rushing to the site to search for survivors and clear all of the roads that have been blocked. So staying with that same devastating disaster, the Dhaka Tribune in Bangladesh brings us the wider regional impact on its front page. They report that the massive floods and landslides along the volatile Nepal Tibet border, that hundreds have been killed, and missing, and many foreign tourists are included in those numbers as they were in the area at the time. So the paper reports that aid workers on the ground describe entire settlements, entire parts of that town and city having been completely wiped out. Nepali police have confirmed that they recovered 157 bodies. That's what the Dhaka Tribune had at the time of publishing, where emergency officials are still working tirelessly to recover the dead and also help the stranded families as the floodwater is still rising. Now, let's look to India. The Hindustan Times, which reports on a significant diplomatic breakthrough. India and China have agreed to move forward with talks regarding boundary delimitation and quickly address any tense situations to prevent misunderstandings or miscalculations along the lines of actual control. So this comes after high-level talks between India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, whose picture is featured on the front page, and China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi. The two sides have reached an 8-point consensus, which includes setting up 2 additional military hotlines to improve border management and communication. Okay, but before we close up the paper roundup, we need to go to Australia next, which has an exclusive report on a major immigration crackdown being finalised by Anthony Albanese or by his government. They're introducing a sweeping migration plan aimed at slashing net overseas migration. The new measures include putting strict limits on international students and their families, stopping temporary visa holders from applying for student visas while onshore, and shortening tourist visitor visas from 12 months down to just 6. Okay, time now to get your weather update. Okay, let's get an update on the weather now. Islamabad first, Pakistan's capital, is heading for a very warm day with abundant sunshine. Forecast is maximum 36 degrees, so nice and hot. Minimum temperatures dropping down to around 27. That heat will become particularly strong during the afternoon, with a real field temperature maybe significantly higher than 36. So residents are advised to make sure that they have lots of water and limit too much time outdoors. Right, next up we're going to go to Beijing. The Chinese capital is going to experience some pretty humid conditions today, a mixture of cloud and sunshine. Maximum temperatures nearly hitting 30 degrees, while minimum will drop down 10 degrees to about 20. It's going to be humid as well, quite noticeably, making the afternoon feel a lot warmer. Overall conditions will be warm, although not as hot as some other capitals on today's list, which we'll get to next. That's Riyadh. That intense summer heat continues to dominate the forecast. The day's very hot with hazy sunshine. Maximum temperatures reaching 46 or 47 degrees. That's huge. Minimum 29, not so minimum. It's still going to be a hot evening for them. So no, I don't think many people are going to want to be doing too much outdoor exercise in that kind of weather or any direct sunlight during the very hot hours of the day. Over to Istanbul, where the weather's going to be sunny, warm. There might be a bit of a noticeable breeze during the afternoon, quite a nice breeze to take the edge off 30 degrees, which will be the highs, and minimum temperatures will drop down to 21. So overall, it should be a pleasant summer's day, although the afternoon wind may become a little bit stronger at times. Now, in London, conditions are going to be pretty unsettled. Look at that, a real mix of a day. Forecast is showing a couple of showers, cloudy skies in the morning, followed by a mixture of cloud and sunshine in the afternoon. And there's also a possibility of a rumble of thunder. The maximum temperature, 23 degrees, so quite mild, even a bit warm for London for this time of year. And the minimum is well and firmly staying in double digits, dropping down to 15 degrees. And with that thunderstorm, it's looking like there might be a yellow weather warning in place for the capital. Now, across the Atlantic in Washington, it's a humid and stormy day. Forecasts are showing that there's going to be some showers followed by a couple of heavy thunderstorms during the afternoon. Some storms could produce some flooding and downpours and some damage with, potential damage if those wind gusts pick up throughout the day. Highs of 32 degrees, minimum will drop down to 21. And anyone there should watch out for sort of rapid changes in temperature and conditions. Now we go to Delhi in India. It's going to remain hot, humid and mostly cloudy. Again here, the likelihood of a stray thunderstorm has been forecast. Maximum temperatures 34 degrees, while minimum will drop down to 27. And that combination of heat and humidity will make conditions feel considerably warmer. So people should stay hydrated. Okay, heading north now to Moscow. The weather's going to be cooler. Some might call it more comfortable. The capital's going to remain a bit moody and a bit cloudy, with those more cloud developing throughout the day. Maximum temperatures topping out at 19 degrees Celsius, which will fall to approximately 9 degrees compared with warmer capitals. Moscow is going to offer a much cooler August day. And finally, let's see what's happening in Paris. It is expected to be very warm, 27 degrees, although there will be points and relief throughout the day as the cloud cover comes in. And later on in the day, there's actually a thunderstorm warning for the capital. So maximum temperatures of 27 degrees. The minimum will drop down quite a bit to 16, actually. And that's what Paris is looking like for today. So if you're planning any outdoor activities, make sure you take an umbrella or book that indoor paddle or tennis court. Now, today's Spotlight takes us to the Ukraine. Now, next month, a 21-truck convoy carrying medicine, hygiene and other essential items is headed from the UK to the Ukraine, led by a group of volunteers. It's organised by a charity called Convoy for Ukraine, who have organised 24 journeys of this kind since the war broke out 4 years ago. We wanted to learn more about the convoy that's happening in October, so I spoke to Parsons, who leads this initiative. A lot of people watching this programme will probably think driving into a war zone is something you absolutely do not do, but you're doing it for all of the right reasons. Tell us about the next convoy.
Yeah, morning, Tanya. Thank you very much for inviting me. Our next convoy, it'll be my 13th, but the charity in all has run 24 to date. It leaves mid-October. We're taking 22 trucks, a motorcycle with us, some 42 volunteers, about £130,000 worth of humanitarian and medical aid. And when we're in Ukraine, we're handing over a couple of mobile operating theatres to our contacts there as well.
Yeah, and I mean, an incredible initiative. You mentioned this is the 24th time that this convoy has gone over there. I imagine that throughout the years, you've seen 13 of them, that the journey has changed, that the supplies that you take or that are needed there perhaps change a little bit. Is that the case?
In the early days, it was a very different operation to that which we have now. We built up contacts over the, sad to say, the 4 years this has been going on, and those contacts multiplied. The need is, the needs in Ukraine we will never be able to satisfy, but we do our best to prioritize such kit as we have that we can take to Ukraine to where it will do the most good. But the needs do change. For example, depending on the offensive, the nature of the armaments being used by the Russians, the medical supplies might prioritize on burn gels, for example, where phosphorus is being used, causing widespread burning to Ukrainian civilians and others. So there'll be a demand for burn bandages and burn gel. Tourniquets are always needed. And depending on the time of year, we might be asked to provide more or less generators depending on what's happening to the electrical system in Ukraine as a whole.
Part of that is obviously having lots of volunteers involved who do a lot of fundraising themselves. I think it's £9,000 each, if I'm not wrong, that they have to raise if they're going to be driving in one of the trucks. How is that money used between supplies, trucks? Talk to me.
We work through volunteers. So on each trip we have a job lot of drivers. They are all asked to raise money from their own contacts and friends. The logic of £9,000 target, which is a lot, but is even in this, after 4 years of war, we still achieve it, is that it costs us about £9,000 to buy a reasonably good truck, 4x4 truck, have it serviced, put new tyres on, etc. And then through the EU customs regulations, we're allowed to take €10,000 worth of aid in each truck. So say £9,000 of aid, and that equates to the £9,000 target for drivers and co-drivers.
There's obviously a huge responsibility involved in organising something like this and taking a number of volunteers out into a war zone. How dangerous is it?
That's a difficult question to answer. It's more dangerous than here in the UK, obviously. We manage ourselves sensibly, prudently. We're well organised. We do all the risk mitigation that we possibly can. It is nonetheless that there is inevitably some risk involved. And the further we go from the Polish border, eastwards, northwards or southwards, the greater that risk is. We do all we can to reduce that risk by taking what steps we can, but it nonetheless doesn't disappear.
What happens when you reach the border? Do you drop these supplies at a sort of depot at the border, or do you then travel further in?
Okay, so journey is to get to the Polish border is 2.5 days. Very solid driving, long days. First night in Dortmund, so it's really our first big get together as a group to meet each other properly. Same again through Poland to Gliwice, towards eastern Poland the next day, and then on the third day we get to the Polish border. Where do we take all our aid? We think it's really, really important to take it as far as we can to its end users. There are lots of reasons for that. We want to be able to tell all our donors and supporters here in the UK that we've actually handed it over. There's much talk about corruption in Ukraine, and I think some of it at the highest government levels quite warranted. But we want to be able to say that we've bought the stuff that we're taking to Ukraine here in the UK, and we physically handed it over to the end users. From the recipients, the Ukrainians' point of view, they, over these 4 long years of war, have a huge concern that they will be forgotten by the rest of the world. We could, in fact, take nothing at all to them, just meet them wherever we meet them in Ukraine, and that would be a huge morale bonus for them. They would regard that as a great thing. The fact that we're taking aid to them obviously is the material bonus, but from a moral point of view, just us going to see them is worthwhile.
Paul, I was reviewing some of the footage that you had sent over kindly to kind of help me see what it all looks like, and I noticed some of the vehicles were sort of passing by a church. What happens at this church? I think it looked like perhaps the cars were there was a ceremony for the cars of some sort.
All the trucks we bring from the UK are blessed at the church before they're delivered to the end users.
Oh.
And this may be surprising, would be surprising in the United Kingdom, but it's deeply valued in Ukraine. At one level, it's an additional level of insurance, if you like. but it's not cosmetic. It's deeply felt.
Is there a day or a particular trip that really stands out to you? For the good or the bad, things might have gone very wrong or may have been sort of very special. I just, I want to hear more about sort of some of the more significant days on the trips.
The first trip, I suppose, was the most impactful, in that there we were going into a war zone, knowing not very much about it, as complete amateurs, if you like. That was just all round impactful. It was February 2023. It had taken us about 3 or 4 months to assemble what we needed. Every bit of that was impactful. And yes, that was in my second trip. With a very small group, if you like, who remained in Lviv, I then went with a small group and effectively toured the front lines. And that was impactful, particularly in that I was able to sit down with, in those days we weren't working through the charity which we're now part of. I was able to sit down with soldiers who'd volunteered. There was a professor of mathematics, I remember, who we chatted to into the small hours. 2 days later, I was told that he'd been killed. At the personal level, as those contacts one made, relationships one was beginning to develop, and then you hear of either very severe injury or death. That will always leaves a real impact on one. Then, I mean, each trip, one hears about Ukrainian resilience. They are hugely resilient, but they're humans just like all of us, and it's perhaps wrong to overemphasize the resilience. But at the human level, one of the videos you have is of one of the military cemeteries in Lviv, the Field of Mars. When I was last there in June, I was walking around quietly around the graves, and a woman, obviously a grieving mother or maybe wife, came up to me and hugged me and thanked me for what we were doing.
There we go, Paul Parsons there from Convoy for Ukraine. Incredible journey. He's done 13 of them himself already. You can find all the details out about the upcoming trips and maybe how you can help by heading over to their website. Thank you for spending the last hour with us. If you want to catch any of what you've seen here on Morning Asia in the last hour, then you can check out our YouTube and also our Instagram pages. We put the full show on YouTube and we clip up some of the best bits from the show and put them across the social media platforms. So thank you for watching, and we'll of course be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pakistan time, so I hope to see you then.